Hare Krishna. The mind is not your boss. Don't let it boss you. Suppose we had a colleague with whom we were working, and suddenly that colleague started bossing us around, telling us, do this, don't do that, and trying to control us. We would resent it and we would reject it. We would not like a colleague's bossing us, and we would refuse to carry out the colleague's commands. What authority do you have to boss me around? You're not my boss, we would say. Something similar happens with us with respect to the mind. Actually, the mind is not even our colleague. The mind is meant to be our subordinate. Now, we are souls, and indriyani paranyahur indriyebhya parammana manasastu parabuddhe yo buddhe paratastu saha. Krishna says in the hierarchy, the senses are above the body, the mind is above the senses, the intelligence is above the mind, and the soul proper is above the intelligence also. So, actually speaking, the soul is 2 steps above the mind in the hierarchy. The intelligence is above the mind, and above that is the soul. So now, when although the soul is above the mind, substantially above the mind, the soul is spiritual, whereas the mind is material, yet the soul often gets carried away by the mind. And the reason for that is that the mind is a very seductive speaker. The mind uses such glib talk, and by its glib talking, it persuades us that it is its our well-wisher. Not only that the mind makes us think that it is our well-wisher, the mind makes us think that we and it and we are the same. Because we think that we are the mind, and because we think that whatever the mind is saying is our desire, is we immediately end up doing it. So, if we study the philosophy of the Bhagavad Gita, we start intellectually analyzing and understanding that there is some voice within me which doesn't act for my best interest. It often makes me do things which harm me, which I regret later. So if I want to do something, and then this difference between us and our mind can become especially acute when we want to do some activity which requires intense concentration. So, for example, when we try to do mantra chanting, and at that time the mind wanders here and there, the mind doesn't allow us to focus. Now, we may at one level get exasperated, or why am I not able to concentrate? Why is my mind wandering? But at another level, the mind's wandering can convince us, I am not my mind. I want to concentrate on Krishna, but his mind is running here and there. That means clearly that the mind and I are different. And once we understand this, at least we will not be seduced into mistaking the mind's voice to be our voice. And after that, this realization of the difference between us and the mind, and from the Bhagavad Gita's analysis, the explanation that the mind is meant to be subordinate to us, these two can help us to start countering and rejecting the mind's commands. Now, the nature of the soul is that the soul is by default meant to be a servant. Mamaimamsho jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatanaha manah shashthani indriyani prakritisthani karshati. So Krishna says that in 15.7 that the soul is my part. So if the soul doesn't serve Krishna, then the soul will have to serve, Krishna says, manah shashthani indriyani. The soul will have to serve the mind and senses. So if we don't want the mind to boss us around, just understanding the mind is different from me or the mind is misleading me, that in and of itself will not be enough. We need to make Krishna our boss. And Krishna is our eternal well-wisher. Suhridam sarvabhutanam. So, to the extent we study the Bhagavad Gita and make Krishna the Lord of our life and reorient our life in such a way that it is animated by the desire to love and serve Krishna, to that extent, that connection with Krishna will enable us to reject the mind's unwholesome and undesirable commands. And gradually that consistent contact will free us, will purify our mind, and thereby make the mind not an enemy as it is presently, but make the mind into a friend. And then we will be able to realize that that when we accept Krishna as our boss, that is not something which is denigrating to us, that is not something which is humiliating to us, because that's how the mind, by propagating like that, oh, why should you be a servant, you should be a boss, the mind will propagate like that and make us try to stop us from serving Krishna. But by saying like this, by saying you should not serve Krishna, the minds, that is a trick of the mind to make us serve it. But once we become purified, when the mind stops obstructing us from serving Krishna, then we start relishing the joyfulness of Krishna consciousness. And then prasade sarva dukkhanam hanirasyopajayate prasanna chetaso yashu buddhi paryavadishtate. Krishna says then we will become prasanna chetaso. Our practice of bhakti will become constantly joyful. Thank you. Hare Krishna.